Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Continuing Education, Certificate Programs, Certificate in Nutrition and Child Care, CNCC, CNCC-1 Nutrition for the Community. Block-7, Quantity Cooking, Unit-29 Planning the Food Service Establishment. 29.1, Introduction. In the previous units, you have come across terms such as restaurant, cafeteria and canteen. These are units which produce and sell food items to make a profit. From Lakshmi's story you have learnt how a woman entrepreneur started and managed an enterprise which successfully supplied packed lunches to office goers. Her enterprise is one among the many food service units which operate around you. In Lakshmi's case, the food service unit was established in her house and food produced was taken to the customers in their offices, a little distance away from her premises. Here you will observe that the food is made in one place and served at another place. Every food service unit may not operate in this manner. Very often the food is served at the same premises where it is cooked. Usually, in small units one end of the production area serves as the dining area or counter for services. In section B we shall now discuss a second case. This is the story of a young boy, Ramu, who established a canteen in a school's premises. Objectives. After studying this unit, you will be able to identify the major facilities and documents needed for running a school canteen and similar establishments. Plan cycle menus and pre-cost them for a food service establishment. Estimate expenditure incurred in starting a food service establishment such as a school canteen. 29.2, A lucky break for Ramu. Ramu was a young boy who had finished his 10th class. He had to make a decision whether to go for further studies or to do some job to earn a living and to support his aged parents. He knew that his parents would not be able to support his further studies and that he had no option but to search for a job. He pinned his hopes on his uncle who was working in the city. When his uncle came to the village on leave, Ramu approached him and told him about his desire to go to the city for employment. His uncle took him to the city along with him. Without much difficulty, he could get a job for Ramu in the same hostel where he was working as the main cook. This was a lucky break for Ramu. Ramu, with his keenness to learn and willingness to work, soon learned the art of making different types of food in the hostel. He also became popular with the inmates of the hostel due to his pleasing manners. In a short period of time, he became so proficient in the job that he was called upon to take the responsibility of the kitchen and mess hall whenever his uncle went on leave or was not well. Within a short period of 3 years, Ramu became confident that he had got the skills and ability to manage a small food service unit on his own. He started looking for such an opportunity. One day he heard from a friend of his uncle that a school nearby was searching for a suitable person to run their canteen. Here you may observe that Ramu was introduced to the trade by his uncle. After that, he was vigilant enough to survey the market to find out avenues where he could utilize the experience gained by him. He got the information from a friend of his uncle. Usually, such information is passed on by word of mouth or sometimes it is published in newspapers. So, what did Ramu do? 29.3, Surveying the market and making initial decisions. Ramu began a market survey realizing its importance. This is evident in both Lakshmi's and Ramu's case. It is only through the market survey that they could locate the right types of customers with a demand. Ramu met the school authorities with a recommendation letter from the warden of the hostel where he was working. The school authorities explained to him the conditions for running the canteen. The school would provide facilities like premises and necessary furniture. However, electricity charges would have to be paid extra if electrical appliances are used in the canteen. Further, the selection of the person to run the canteen would depend on the credentials of the person and the prices quoted for the items to be sold in the canteen. Ramu was given a list of the items to be served normally in the canteen with their size and weight and was asked to quote his prices by a particular date. Ramu decided to give the venture a try. Check your progress exercise. 1. Sushila found that the nursery school which her daughter attends needs someone to supply snacks suitable for preschoolers. She already has a part-time job. Identify the major points she would need to consider before deciding to start a small establishment on the nursery school premises. You are listening to this audiobook on Audio Learn IGNOU. 29.4, Working out a quotation. The first task before Ramu was to work out a quotation. He had to determine the selling prices of the items to be sold in the canteen. What is a quotation? A quotation is a list of rates or a single rate at which a person agrees to sell particular items or provide particular services. To work out a quotation, Ramu realized that prices should not be so low as to deprive him of any profit and should also not be so high as to be underquoted by other competitors. In other words, it should be competitive and yet provide him a reasonable margin of profit. To determine the optimum selling price of an item, the cost of making this item was to be determined first. This involved finding out the cost of the raw materials required for making the item. In other words, this meant calculating and estimating the food cost and also the wages that were to be paid to the workers, that is the labor cost. Other than these two major expenses, expenses on items like fuel, transportation, conveyance and cost of free food items like sauces and chutney were also to be worked out. He had also to make provision for paying the license fee to the school authorities and for the installments that he would have to pay for the loan that he would be taking to run the canteen. You may realize that Ramu decided to take up this venture to earn a living which should come from the sales after meeting all expenditures and paying the installments of loans he would have to take for starting this canteen. Therefore, the margin of profit was to be determined after taking into consideration all these factors and yet be reasonable enough that his selling price would be the lowest among the competitors. Having considered all these factors, Ramu proposed to keep the selling price as double that of the food cost. Assuming the selling price as 100%, 50% was earmarked for food costs, 20% for labor cost, 7.5% for overhead expenses, 7.5% for replacement and maintenance of equipment and breakables and 15% for profit. From this 15% earmarked as profit, he had to repay the installment of loans and to provide for his personal expenses. Thus the budgeting of the selling price of the food items was summed up as follows. Food cost minus 50%. Labor cost minus 20%. Overheads minus 7.5%. Maintenance minus 7.5%. Profit minus 15%. After working out the selling prices of each item accordingly, Ramu also consulted a few canteen contractors and dhaba owners in this regard. They confirmed that conventionally they also fixed the selling price as double the cost of the raw food and that it would be sufficient to meet all expenditures and also to provide for a reasonable profit. Using the formula of the selling price being double that of the food cost, he calculated the cost of a samosa weighing 70 grams. For this purpose he first listed down the items required for making the item. Then he determined the price of these raw materials at the rates at which they were available in the market. The total of the cost of all these ingredients gave the food cost of one portion of samosa. By doubling it he fixed the selling price of the samosa. For example, if the food cost of a samosa weighing 75 grams came to 50 paise, the selling cost would be rupee 1. Check your progress exercise 2. 1. Shravan is operating a school canteen. He sees an advertisement in a newspaper asking for the services of a contractor to operate a large institutional canteen. He goes to the institution to find out more details. What questions should he ask the authorities in order to help him to decide on a quotation? Ramu, thus taking into consideration the food cost of each item and applying the formula of the selling price of each item, made a price list and submitted it in a sealed cover to the school authorities as prescribed. There were 4 other quotations. These quotations were opened on its specified date and time and it was found that Ramu had quoted the lowest rates for most of the items. This, in other words, meant that Ramu was awarded the contract. The next step before Ramu could operate the canteen was to sign a contract with the school authorities. Let's see how this was done. 29.5. Signing the contract. As his credentials and experience were satisfactory, Ramu was selected to run the canteen for 1 year with a provision for extending the period further on satisfactory performance on mutually agreed terms. HC was also asked to deposit a sum of Rs. 1,000 as security money to ensure that he would honor the commitment as per the terms of the agreement. He was also given a written contract. A copy of the contract is given here. Contract. The following contract has been signed between Shri, son of Shri, residents of hereafter referred to as the contractor, and the school hereafter referred to as the school for the purpose of the functioning of the school canteen. 1. The contract is from date to date. 2. The contractor has to deposit a sum of Rs. 1,000 as security money within 10 days from the date of signing the contract. 3. The contractor will have to pay a sum of Rs. 200 per month as a license fee in advance before the 5th of every month. 4. No charges will be levied for electricity consumed for fans and lights, but if any electrical appliances or heater is used by the contractor in the canteen, charges as fixed by the school will be levied. 5. The school will be providing refrigerator, for which the contractor will have to pay rental charges of Rs. 100 per month. 6. The contractor will have to comply with the relevant municipal or other government laws, bylaws, regulations or any other legal requirements for running the canteen. 7. The canteen will function from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. on all working days of the school. 8. The contractor should ensure that the food is prepared in and served in total hygienic conditions. The canteen committee appointed by the school is authorized To inspect the food, its preparation and serving as and when desired. _ 9. The contractor will sell the food items at the rates approved by the school. No change in the rates or items will be permitted without the prior approval of the school. These approved rates are to be displayed prominently in the canteen. 10. The school will not be responsible for any theft, loss or pilferage of the food items in the canteen. 1. The contractor will be responsible for the safe custody of the furniture and other fittings in the canteen, and any loss of damage will be charged from the contractor. 12. The contractor will also cater for meetings and other occasions connected with the school even on holidays. 13. The contractor may add more items to the menu subject to the approval of the canteen committee. 14. The contractor shall observe cordial relations with everyone. He shall be responsible for the good conduct and behavior of the persons employed by him. 15. The canteen will cater only to the students and staff of the school and to the occasional visitors to the school, and it will not be open to outsiders. 16. The contractor will have to employ the required labor force. 17. The contractor or his employees will not be allowed to stay in the premises of the canteen. 18. After the expiry of the contract for 1 year, if satisfied, the school may extend the contract further on an annual basis, and for the extended period any price increase will be determined by a committee appointed by the school. 19. Any violation of the terms of the contract will cause immediate termination of the contract and forfeiture of the security deposit. 20. The school will have the right to terminate the contract by giving 2 months' notice without assigning any reasons. Signed by the school, signed by the contractor. In the presence of. On going through this contract, you would have noticed terms such as SLO and RO. This means son of and resident of respectively. Though the language of the contract is usually legal, it is not difficult to understand. In this case, the school authorities selected the contractor on the basis of the rates quoted by the intending persons. Some schools may adopt a different method for selecting the contractor. They may fix the rates at which foods items have to be provided in the canteen, and the intending persons will be asked to quote the rent or charges they would be prepared to offer for the premises offered by the school. In such cases, the terms of the contract will be slightly different from the ones stated above. Here you have observed that when dealing with established institutions you may have to submit quotations. To be able to get such contracts you will have to arrive at the right price, where yours will be the lowest and yet the project is feasible enough to give you sufficient returns. Once the contract was accepted and signed by Ramu, he had to take the necessary steps to start the canteen at the earliest. For that, he had to plan his resources properly. You are listening to this audiobook on Audio Learn IGNOU. 29. 6. Estimating expenditure. The first step he undertook in this direction was to plan his course of action. First of all, he listed the items of expenditure and planned their procurement and use. Ramu listed the following items of expenditure for which he had to raise the necessary funds. 1. Security deposit. 2. Cost of material, raw food items. 3. Cost of equipment. 4. Overhead expenditure, and 5. Labor cost, wages. To determine the raw food cost, he had to find out the probable number of students and staff who would be visiting the canteen in a day. This information he was able to obtain from the school authorities. They estimated that approximately about 30 to 35% of the students and 50 to 60% of the staff may be visiting the canteen daily. Thus, an approximate number of 320 students and 40 staff members were estimated as the daily customers visiting the canteen. Ramu realized that this figure of 360 was only an estimate or probable number, and that he would be able to get an accurate number only after running the canteen for some time, when the trend of the clientele would become clear. The number of the customers would also depend on the variety and quality of the food served there. Variations in the number of customers estimated and the number actually visiting the canteen in a day is quite usual and becomes evident only once the canteen runs for a period of time. Ramu decided to find out the basis on which the school authorities arrived at the likely size of his clientele, i.e., people utilizing canteen services. He found that the rationale the school authorities used in estimating the number of students that may visit the canteen was the presumption that the majority of the students in the junior classes would bring their lunches from home. It is mostly the students of the middle and senior classes who would be patronizing the canteen either to eat a whole meal or to supplement their lunch packets. The next decision Ramu had to take was the variety to be included in the menu. Ramu, considering the need of the students, decided to provide 1 plate lunch and about 3 varieties of snacks every day. The rationale for this decision was that about 100 to 150 customers may take plate lunch and others may be requiring snacks. He used the popularity of the snacks as a guide in determining the variety to be included in the menu. While planning the menu, Ramu kept the following points in mind. 1. That the items should be popular and easily accepted by the student population. 2. The items should be easy to prepare and have a shelf life. 3. Leftover of the items could be easily incorporated in the next day's menu. 4. The raw materials should be easily available and should not need elaborate storage arrangements. 5. The items should be such that they could be sold alone or in combination. 6. Minimum cutlery and crockery should be required, and 7. The items should be within the purchasing power of the students and staff. 29.6.1 Menu Planning and Pre-Costing. Based on the principles he had already listed, Ramu made a 5-day cycle menu offering a plate lunch and 3 types of snacks. He also decided to serve cold beverages like soft drinks and hot beverages like tea and coffee. Processed foods like biscuits, chips and sweets were also to be offered for sale in the canteen. A sample of the cycle menu Ramu prepared is given in the following chart. Look at the screen for table content. From this menu, it may be seen that when kulcha chhole was to be served as plate lunch, chhole was also used to be served along with the tikki. Similarly, when sambar was to be made to be served with dosa, sambar vada was also to be made available. The combinations were made to ensure that one item prepared would be sold through more than one channel. It may also be noted that when varas were to be made, they were to be prepared in bulk to cater for 2 days. On the first day it was to be served as plain vara or varar with sambar, and the next day as the hiwara. Similarly, when rice and dal batter was to be made, it was to be used for making idli on the first day and dosa or uttapam the next day. The rationale in serving a plate lunch was to serve a nutritionally complete meal in a plate. A judicious choice of both wheat and rice was used in planning the meal. A plate lunch is termed as a complete meal as it includes preparations made of cereal, pulse, vegetable or curd, as may be seen from the examples such as vegetable stuffed parantha with bundi raita or kulcha chhole with salad or rice, rajma and vegetables. Plate lunches are so called also because they can be served in a full plate with a bowl for the gravy item. You would notice that the plate lunch has only one gravy item and the number of items has also been limited to 3. While planning the menu for snacks, Ram kept in mind that fried items have good shelf life, but too many fried items on the menu would be uneconomical due to the high price of oil. Therefore, he planned to make 1 fried item, 1 prepared item, not fried, and 1 item which needs minimum oil. This also helped to establish a variety in items as different methods of cooking were adopted. Ram planned to use bread in the menu as it was easily available. He planned to offer 1 sweet item on one particular day of the week. Ram realized that most snacks were to be provided with chutney or sauce, so they were also included in the menu. Having planned the menu meticulously, the next step Ramu took was to pre-cost it. You have in the previous units come across the term pre-costing. Pre-costing means to determine the cost of the items that constitute the menu. Pre-costing is important because it gives an indication of the cost of the raw food required for the menu items. It also serves as the basis for calculating the selling price. For pre-costing the menu, Ranu made use of standardized recipes. This concept of standardization has been explained in the previous units. As you know, standardized recipes are essential in a commercial organization to ensure consistently good quality of food. The advantage of using a standardized recipe is that it specifies the yield, numbers of portions and size of a portion. With this information and the amounts of each of the ingredients used and their cost, pre-costing becomes much simpler. Rama noted down the ingredients required to make 1 portion of the menu item and found out their cost using the prevalent market price. The total cost of the ingredients gave the total raw food cost of the particular food item. This figure is termed as the food cost of that particular item. In the case of recipes which yield more than 1 portion, the raw food cost calculated is to be divided by the number of portions to determine the cost of 1 portion. For example, suppose cost of sambar for 10 portions comes to Rs. 3.20. The cost of 1 portion will be Rs. 3.20 equals 32p. The raw food cost of all the menu items was thus worked out. Treating this as 50% of the selling price, this figure was doubled to get the actual selling price. Ramu did this entire exercise to ensure that he would be able to sell the items at the price quoted by him to the school authorities and that the project would be feasible. The next step Ramu undertook was to determine the number of portions of each menu item he would have to prepare in a day. This number was important because it would help him to assess the money needed to determine the quantities of raw food to buy and plan the work schedule. He assumed that out of the estimated 350 customers, 100 would take the plate lunch and that the remaining customers would take about 100 to 150 portions of each snack item. The exact number of each item, however, would be determined only after running the canteen for some time. Ramu presumed that on a day, when there is a choice of samosa, dhokla and sandwiches, about 150 samosas, 75 portions of dhokla and 100 portions of sandwiches may be sold. 10 portions were added to the estimated number of snack items required, to ensure that inadequate numbers of portions were available for sales. Keeping these factors in view, Ramu estimated that about 100 portions of each item would be required daily and determined the cost involved. The food cost of a plate lunch varied from Rs. 1.75 to Rs. 2 and snacks from 50p to 75p. He took the upper the margin of food cost and determined the cost of 100 plate lunches to Rs. 200, 2.00 by 100, and the cost of snacks to be Rs. 225, 0.75 by 300. He thus estimated the approximate food cost in a day to be Rs. 425, 200 plus 225. Ramu then worked out the expenditure that he would have to incur in a month for the raw food materials. Considering that the school works for an average of 20 days in month, he calculated his monthly food expenditure as Rs. 8,500 or approximately Rs. 85,000 for 200 days. The estimate made here is by taking the upper limit of the food cost to ensure that sufficient cash would be available at any time of purchasing the items required for preparation. Having decided the range within which he had to keep the food cost, the next step was to evolve the selling price. Ram from the very beginning worked on the policy that the selling price would be double that of the food cost. He had also to ensure that the selling price thus arrived at would be Rs. 3.50, with a food cost of 1 rupee and 75 paise, and the selling price of snacks would be between Rs. 1 to 1.50, keeping the food cost between 0.50p to 0.75p. Therefore the projected income in a day was Rs. 350 from the sale of 100 plate lunches at Rs. 3.50. 2. Rs. 375 from the sale of 300 portions of snacks at an average cost of Rs. 1.25. 3. Rs. 75 from the sale of 100 beverages at 0.75p. So the income per day from the sales was estimated to be Rs. 800. Rs. 350 plus 375 plus 75 _. For 200 working days of the school, the income was to be Rs. 1,60,000. Rs. 800 by 200 days. Check your progress exercise 3. 1. If Ramu had to serve a clientele of 500 persons, how would the pre-costing formulae vary? 2. A school canteen has to cater to individuals belonging to varying age groups. A. Do you agree? B. Justify your answer and comment on possible influences on menu and portion size. 29.6.2 Labor costs. The next major item Ramu needed to plan was the money required to pay the wages of the employees he would be hiring. While computing the sales price, he had decided that the labor cost would be 20% of the selling price of the food items. Ramu earmarked this higher percentage as labor cost, taking into account the holidays and vacations when there would be no sales at all. Normally the schools work only for 180 to 200 days in a year, and out of the sales proceeds from these days Ramu would have to raise the money to pay the wages for the 365 days of the year. If the sales income as estimated would be Rs. 800 per day, 20% of it works out to Rs. 160, which would be available to pay the wage. Taking 200 days as the working days in the school, the money thus available would be Rs. 32,000. Rs. 160 by 200 days. He would have to distribute this money among his employees for the 12 months of the year. Therefore, Ramu, taking into consideration the money available to him for paying wages, and the skill and experience of the workers, decided that he would pay Rs. 1,000 per month to the head cook, Rs. 750 per month to the assistant cook, and Rs. 300 per month each to the 3 utility workers. This would make the total wage bill in a month Rs. 2,650 or Rs. 31,800 in year. The balance Rs. 200 was to be set aside for meeting contingencies e.g., when additional workers were to be employed due to regular employees falling sick or remaining absent. 29.6.3 Equipment costs. The next major expenditure that would be required to be incurred would be for the purchase of the equipment needed to start the canteen. Ram first listed the essential items necessary for the canteen. He was able to do it with his experience in the hostel and with the advice of his uncle, who was a veteran in the field. He also visited a few canteens for this purpose. Then he conducted a market survey to find out the approximate price of each item. The following is of items Ramu prepared with their estimated cost. Look at the screen for table content. The overhead expenditure was estimated to be 7.5% of the sales. This would include Rs. 480 the cost of fuel, that is gas, and Rs. 100 for rice. The contract has stipulated that electricity would be free of charge, but for the electrical appliances, like wet grinder and hot case, he would have to pay the charges for the electricity consumed, which may come to Rs. 12 approximately. In addition, he would have to pay Rs. 100 per month as rental charges for the refrigerator the school had agreed to provide. Provision would also have to be made for the monthly license fee of Rs. 200 from this head of expenditure. Thus the expenditure under the overheads were estimated to be Rs. 1,000 approximately in a month, though a provision of Rs. 1,207.5% of the sales would be available. Ramu thus worked out the money needed under each head of expenditure to determine the capital that would be needed to start the canteen. The total expenditure was summarized as follows. Security deposit, 1,000. Food cost for 1 month, 8,500. Labor cost for 1 month, 2,650. Cost of equipment, 16,000. Overheads, 1,000. Total, 29,150. Check your progress. Exercise 4. 1. Anand and Vishal are brothers running a small dhaba on a highway. They serve 50 to 100 truck drivers, bus drivers, attendants and some long-distance travelers every day. A. How many people do you think they should employ? Why? B. Anand and Vishal decide to list the tasks they will assign to the persons they employ. Can you help them fill in this chart? You are listening to this audiobook on Audio Learn IGNOU. 29.7 Generating Funds. You have just seen how Ramu decided on the menu and the number of workers to be employed. On T basis he worked out the expenditure required to run the canteen. Ramu realized that he had to raise Rs. 29,150 or about Rs. 30,000 to start the canteen. This amount appeared too big for him, but he did not get discouraged. He first approached his uncle and told him about his need. His uncle, seeing his enthusiasm, promised him a loan of Rs. 3,000 from his savings. Adding this to the savings of Rs. 2,000 Ramu had with him, Rs. 5,000 became available. He still had to get Rs. 25,000. Ramu knew that borrowing the money from local money lenders would be disastrous, as their rates of interest would be very high and it would be difficult for him to repay their loans with this interest. The only alternative he found was to approach the nearby nationalized bank for a loan at reasonable interest, as he was aware that the banks give loans to small entrepreneurs and to people seeking self-employment. He knew the case of Jagu, who had bought an auto rickshaw on a loan from the bank. But Jagu had hypothecated his vehicle to the bank for this purpose. On approaching the bank, Ramu was advised that those small sums were available as loans on personal security of the individuals. For big sums like the one Ramu wanted, security of land or similar immovable property would be required. Ramu, with the approval of his father, mortgaged a part of his land in the village to the bank for this purpose. As desired by the bank, Ramu prepared a project report stating his objectives and his plan of action and the funds required. He worked out the expenditure in terms of the capital required and projected the sales income as anticipated. He spelled out how he would able to pay back the loan in monthly installments in a period of 4 years. Ramu estimated an expenditure of Rs. 29,150 or Rs. 30,000 for the project. Out of this he could raise Rs. 5,000 from his savings as a loan from his uncle. The balance Rs. 25,000 was needed from the bank. Ramu had set aside 15% of the selling price as his profit. From an anticipated sales of Rs. 16,000 in a month, he would be getting a profit of Rs. 2,400 per month or Rs. 24,000 in an academic year of 10 months. Out of this, Rs. 1,200 per month was required by Ramu for his personal expenses and to send to his parents. This he treated as his salary for a month. Therefore, for 12 months Ramu's salary would come to Rs. 14,400. This would leave about Rs. 9,600 with him in a year for repayment of the loans. The bank became convinced about the feasibility of the project given by Sri Ramu and the required loan was granted to him on their usual terms. 29.8 Learning from Ramu's experience. In this unit you have seen how Ramu planned the establishment of a canteen. In subsequent units you will see how Ramu established it and also learn the measures he undertook to ensure that the unit runs profitably. What were the steps Ramu took in planning his food service establishment? They were: I. Looking for opportunities. 2. Deciding on a particular venture. 3. Submitting a quotation. 4. Signing the contract. 5. Estimating size of clientele, i.e., number of customers. 6. Deciding on the menu and pre-costing it. 7. Estimating expenditure on labor, equipment, maintenance and overheads etc. and thus estimating total expenditure. 8. Generating funds. You should follow this same systematic procedure if you want to start a similar canteen in a school or college or other institution. Be careful to make changes according to the needs of your situation. 29.9. Glossary. Alloy, a substance with the properties of a metal and composed of two or more chemical elements of which at least one is a metal. Charges, expenses on account of electricity, water and other services. Contractor, a person who signs a contract, a legal agreement, in order to perform work at a certain price or rate. Credentials, evidence of ability to perform a given job or task. Expiry, used in terms of expiry of contract. This means that the period for which the contract was valid is over. Head of expenditure, individual items or categories of items on which money has to be spent. Hypothecated. This has the same meaning as mortgage, to pledge in security for a debt without transfer. Levy, levied, collection of tax or contribution of money. License fee, a token sum of money collected for permission to use premises. Mortgage, legal arrangement whereby a person promises to give up possession of goods or property if he is unable to pay back his debt. Premises, a building or part of it or land including houses or fiefs. Termination, ending, of the contract, due to a decision taken by one of the parties signing the contract. Thank you. We will see you in the next video.